Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Ritter podcast. Guess where we are? We're at episode 100. That is triple digits of BRP. Can you believe that?
No, I still can't. Like
I still
even
can't.
like the prep for this, like the everything, it feels so weird. I felt like this big milestone that was always in the distance, and now like we're here. It's great.
We've actually done 100 episodes. Yeah, so we're here, powered by the Game Entertainment and Media. I'm your host, Avery Roche, along with co-host Gitano Gallo. We have a Stanley Cup champion. That'll be most of what we talk about for this episode 100. There are a couple other things that we'll do. We're going to do a theme team, which was all playoff. We are also going to talk about the little bit of news just from the buyout period and some rumors and some things that have already happened. So we'll get into that a little bit. But let's start off, like we said, with the Stanley Cup champion, Las Vegas Golden Knights. They came into the league in 2017. There were 6 of the original Misfits on this team that did win the Stanley Cup. And yeah, it's been a very, very impressive 6 years and a cutthroat 6 years for the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it, actually, cutthroat.
Yeah, they did whatever they needed to do to win. Bill Foley said we will win a Stanley Cup in 6 years, and they did exactly that. 6 years later, it is 2023. They came into the league in 2017. They won a Stanley Cup.
I believe the quote was playoffs in 3, cup in 6.
Yeah, and they went cup final in 1. So
yeah. So yeah, they were just super impressive. Like I would love to sit here and bash them because I'm not a big fan of the franchise, but like what they've done is just super, super impressive on the ice. And really, I think this is kind of the perfect, bow on what they have done so far, and that they're only going to get better. And I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, see, the thing that's interesting to me about them is they've mortgaged their future completely to ice the team that they have. They pulled the Tampa Bay with the cap as well. Like Mark Stone's injury and a few other injuries that piled up around them allowed them to utilize LTIR space, just like Tampa did to win their cup a couple of years ago. I just don't see how they can continue into the future here. They also have zero draft capital, like none. Like
I think at least for the next 2-3 years, as long as they stay relatively healthy, they'll be contenders for sure.
See, the only argument I have there is, first of all, they have no idea who their goaltender is. No idea. Aiden Hill's a free agent.
It's Aiden Hill's a free
agent. No, it isn't, because he's a free agent and they can't afford him. To be quite honest. So I'll tell you what. I'll give you $20 if Aiden Hill's a Vegas Golden Knight next year. No way.
Okay, let me write it down. I'm putting it on the fucking whiteboard.
I'm telling you, there's no way Vegas can sign Aiden Hill. They still have Robin Lehner on their books, Gitano.
When's his deal done?
Aiden Hill is a theoretical 4 there. Like, realistically, he was the backup in the AHL to begin the season. That is the order of events. Like, if you take Lehner and then you go Laurent Brossoit and Logan Thompson, those are 3 guys that they would prefer to start ahead of Aiden Hill. That's just a fact.
Oh, yes, they have Lehner, but he's on LTIR, so like...
Yeah, but how long is he on LTIR for? Do we know how long that injury is going to keep him out for? Like, I know it kept him out this entire season. He's also like getting charged with like stealing exotic snakes in like Texas or something. Like,
can we do an off-season episode just on that, please?
That is one of the most bizarre stories I've ever heard out of hockey in my entire life. But yeah, I think not that they got lucky, but I'm not going to lie to you that it seems like it was one of the easier paths to a Stanley Cup from both sides. Maybe not Florida. Not easy. That's the wrong word. Just, I don't know. It was underwhelming. The entire playoffs, I'm sorry, were underwhelming. It just, I personally, I'm sorry. I know I have a podcast about the sport. I stopped watching straight up. I barely watched the Stanley Cup final.
See, but here's the thing. Because I do the same thing with the Habs. When the Habs lose in the playoffs, I switch off after that because I'm upset. But as a Habs fan who didn't have any horse in this race, I loved it. It was great. I thought these playoffs were really, really entertaining and really, really good.
See, what I have to say to you there is the ratings and the fans have a completely different opinion.
No,
because the Toronto Maple Leafs and Florida Panthers, the Toronto Maple, when they clinched their first round series, that had significantly more views and more ratings and better everything, more people watching it overall than the Stanley Cup final. And to me, that's just it was underwhelming. The entire process after the Leafs were eliminated, and maybe it's just because I know the Leafs are the center of the hockey universe. I get it, but it just it took the air right out of it for me. Took the air right out of it for me and a lot of other people.
I was saying, like TSN or Sportsnet or whoever, like they air like the Leafs blue and white scrimmage on TV, and it does mad ratings. So like I do understand that yes, when the Leafs go out, when the kind of the biggest market teams go out, yeah, it's going to affect ratings. But just from a simply on ice, like just as a fan watching the games, I thought they were great still. I was super engaged in them, watched basically as much as I could, other than some of the late overtimes, because I'm just too old to fucking stay up till 2 a.m. now doing that. But yeah, I thought it was great.
I don't know. I just felt like there was lack of authenticity and emotion. That's what I felt. I don't know. Anyway, let's move into actually Vegas and how they actually did this. So they went through. They started against Winnipeg. I actually picked Winnipeg to win that series, so that tells you how high I was on Vegas. It was an interesting run from their perspective. You're right about Florida. They didn't have exactly an easy path. They took down Boston, Toronto, and then Carolina. But if you look at what Vegas did, I could argue that it was one of the easier paths to a Stanley Cup final in recent memory.
See, I don't think the path itself was easy, except for Winnipeg, because Winnipeg just is horrific in the playoffs.
Well, they folded. They
always do. They always do. But like Edmonton with McDavid and Draisaitl, who was having like one of the greatest playoffs we've ever seen, and they managed to, not exactly keep them quiet, but shut them down enough to win. Dallas, who we kind of said was one of the best all-around teams in these playoffs, beat them in 6. And then Florida, who were having, the playoff run in 5. Like, I don't think that's easy. I think Vegas just played really, really well. They had 4 lines rolling. Their fucking goaltender on fire. And one of the biggest, meanest, nastiest 6 defensemen you can fucking ice in this league right now. So I think it just all the chips lined up perfectly. And they maybe made it look easy, but it definitely, I don't think, was an easy path.
Yeah, I guess it's never an easy path when you're talking about a Stanley Cup final. I'm just saying relative to other paths that have, especially in recent memory, even relative to, like you said, what Florida kind of had to go through this particular season. It seemed, especially considering they were like $14 million over the cap, it just seemed, like they just kind of skated through it, if that makes sense. And yeah, Edmonton, like to me, they're not the real Stanley Cup final, but I think Vegas's toughest opponent was Edmonton in this playoff run. And what went wrong for Edmonton? The same old things. They weren't sound enough defensively. Stuart Skinner sucked. Their goaltending couldn't pull together for anything. And after that, I don't know. It was interesting. Of course, I was a guy pulling for a Leafs Edmonton final. That obviously was very, very far from happening. Both teams going out in the second round, but that's about all I have to say. I like I said, I didn't watch too much of it. It seemed uninspired to me. This is all a personal opinion. And yeah, I don't know. I'm more interested in the offseason than I was in the Stanley Cup final. Let me put it to you that way.
Well, that's what happens when your team doesn't make the playoffs or gets eliminated, Dave, because I know.
But that's not even true. I've enjoyed playoff runs before after the Leafs have been eliminated, and we damn well know that there's been lots of those. So, anyway.
I do want to touch, though, on the clinching game 5. They win 9-3. It was a close game for about a period and a half.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean by an underwhelming final. Like, who cares about... Like, I stopped watching that game very early. I don't remember exactly when, but oh my God, that was almost like watching paint dry. honestly.
Yeah. Well, because so it was 2-1 about 10 minutes into the second. Like, it was a close game. And you're thinking, okay, like, whichever way this next goal goes, like,
Yeah.
and then I've described Vegas as, remember when Tampa and like in their like prime when they would just ping the puck around the ice like they were on a 5-on-3, even though it was 5-on-5, and then someone's just standing at the back door for a tap in. They did that about like 4 times in the space of 5 minutes. It was
They took
great
over,
to watch,
yeah.
but also disgusting. Like, it was, I felt so bad for Florida because they were running around their own end. They couldn't have touched the puck if their lives depended on it.
Yeah, and that was the Stanley Cup final. Like, that's kind of my point. Like, when I tried to watch a game in this final, I just couldn't. I was just like, this is like, I'd rather scroll Twitter. Anyway,
I do want to shout out Suboy Mike Amadio, scored in the clinching game. Had actually a pretty good playoffs.
everybody scored in the clinching game.
And I will say Mark Stone scoring a hat trick in the clinching game is really, really impressive. That was a really nice kind of icing on the cake there.
Yeah.
But I also want to talk about like what the organization did on that night. So starting 5 of the 6 original Misfits, I thought was just a phenomenal move for them. And then after Mark Stone was handed the cup from Gary Bettman, the 6 Misfits got the cup first. I thought that was just, like, we always talk about organizations like doing things right, and we know, like, the Habs, the Leafs, we always do things right. I thought that was like a prime example of one of these newer teams kind of doing the right things, doing things the right way, like the good old way. I thought it was just a really, really great moment for them.
Classy, yeah. So, can we agree that Vegas is probably the best expansion franchise, like, in the history of sports, maybe?
So I'm gonna say no to that just because I don't know the expansion history of any other sports really, other than like NHL and MLS. So I can't.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the Florida Panthers went to the Stanley Cup final in their first year in the league.
It would have been one of their first years. I don't know if it was their very first, but definitely
very, very. Yeah, they've never won, obviously, a Stanley Cup,
no.
But that's why I would slot Vegas ahead of them. Because just
for sure, no, definitely. If we're just going on the expansion teams that we can kind of think of, like, I don't know any of like the like how successful like the early expansion teams were, like the Flyers or anyone like that, like how quickly they got successful.
Yeah.
But if we're talking, if we're talking like Vegas here, like, yeah, they have to be up there with one of the best.
Yeah. All right. Congratulations to the Vegas Golden Knights. Congratulations to Sault Ste. Marie native Mike Amadio. I can't wait to see the Stanley Cup when you bring it back here, sir. But let's move on to, do you want to talk? Let's do like buyout and trade speculation and stuff like that first, then team to close it out.
Sounds good.
Okay. Let's start in Toronto. There's a couple. So buyout candidate number 1, the obvious one, is obviously Matt Murray. Are you on Cap Friendly right now?
I am pulling it up as we speak.
Okay. I forget what the exact ramifications are of buying him out. He, to me, is a clear buyout candidate. When he's healthy, he's underwhelming, and he's not often healthy. Yeah. We've talked about this at length about Matt Murray. I hoped for him to have a great season. It just did not happen. He was not good enough. I think everybody understands that, including Matt Murray. But it's just, there's so many. We have other options in net. I think we can agree that Samsonov and Woll are probably the future of the crease in Toronto.
Unless they do something crazy this summer, yeah.
Yeah, like unless they trade for Connor Hellebuck, which we'll talk about briefly here in a second. But I just think you need to get the money off the books. I know there's a penalty involved. I believe it's $2.5 million for another season after this, plus like $1 million this season, something like that. That's not a direct exact number, but it's something like that. And he's not going to play anyway, so you got to do it. Like, he's taking up cap space anyway, like more than that. So you have to do it. So the interesting one for me was Frank Saravalli, apparently today on his podcast. I didn't listen. This was just the Twitter news. called for TJ Brody to be bought out, which literally makes like negative amounts of sense. Or it wasn't that he was calling for it, it's that he wondered if the Leafs were going to do it. Why would they do that? Like, just, this is one of the best defensive defensemen in the NHL. Definitely one of our best defensive defensemen.
And he's like, what, like late 20s, early 30s tops?
I think he's early 30s.
Yeah.
He's got 1 year left at 4.5. What is the point of buying out TJ Brody? Like, he's a trade chip.
Yeah.
Like, he's if get a lot of value for if you really wanted to get rid of him. Why would you buy him out?
Yeah, like that. Yeah, that makes no sense to me. Like you said,
one of the most asinine things I've ever heard. Like, Frank Saravalli sometimes says some dumb stuff. That is one of the most insane things I've ever heard.
Yeah, like right? even like as a Habs fan, I'm sitting here. Like when you said it, I was like no.
Like he had a good play. He didn't have a great playoffs. I get that, but he wasn't
he didn't have a bad playoffs.
He wasn't the best. He's usually top of the pack in defensive metrics. Yeah. He was about middle of the pack across all defensemen. But so, like, he makes $4.5 million.
Yeah, you still take like a middle of the pack defenseman like that, who you know can play at a way higher level still.
Who played at a way higher level the entirety of the 82 games of last season. Like, I don't understand where that, like, TJ Brody's a blessing to the Toronto Maple Leafs, not a burden.
Honestly,
I don't know. That's just that was one of the most insane asinine takes that I think I've ever heard come out of that guy's mouth. And there's been some doozies. Like, there's been some real dumb stuff that he has said. Okay. Let's talk about Winnipeg quick. So yeah. Winnipeg basically is a mess. We talked about how they fold every time they make it to the playoffs. Their goaltender has told them he will not be re-signing and therefore would like to be traded. Pierre-Luc Dubois and Cole Caulfield were basically kissing each other at that F1 race this weekend. So I'm going to imagine that PLD wants out too. Mark Scheifele, who even knows what's going on with that guy? He was basically useless last year. He's another guy that's going to be out of there.
Always is. Always is.
What are they going to do?
So here's the funny thing, because their management's talked about how they want to remain competitive, but at the same time, like, their entire core wants out.
Yeah, it seems like not gonna work
unless they're gonna, like, I'm trying to think of like equivalents here, but like if you're gonna flip Hellebuck for like an equivalent-ish goalkeeper, and then try and flip PLD for an equivalent-ish center, like if you're gonna try and replace them piece by piece like that, then maybe. But then you're just hoping that a whole new core gels and continues rolling. I don't see it happening. I think if the core wants out, if Hellebuck, Dubois, Scheifele, Wheeler want out, unfortunately for the Winnipeg Jets, it's maybe a soft reset. It's not a hard, rebuild, not like the Habs or like Arizona always, but like I think they could be going into a soft rebuild here.
So here's the thing though for me, like PLD now has wanted out of the only two places that he's ever played in his NHL career. He's maybe got some value, but like he sounds and it sure seems like he'll only be a Hab.
Yeah.
So I don't know really what value you can get for him. Blake Wheeler's like old enough to be my grandfather. He's got no value, like none. I'm sorry, you're not getting any. You'll have to pay somebody to take him off your books. Yeah. Connor Hellebuck's the only piece of real value to me. I can understand where some people could see some value in Scheifele, but for me, it's Hellebuck that's really got some value. But I don't know what kind of leverage you have because he's a UFA and he's not signing. He's already said it, like in the summer. So if he just said, like, if you don't get something for him, if you want to sit there and wait, like, it's a different sport, just like the Raptors did with Kyle Lowry. Remember that? Where it's like we kept him for a season, even though we were absolutely garbage, and then we got like a second round, like a late second round pick, which there's only 2 rounds in the NBA draft. So like a 7th round pick in the NHL, just because you wanted to keep him for an extra couple of months. Like, you know what I mean? If they let it go down to the wire, they're going to get nothing for him either, is what I'm saying. They're going to get nothing for him.
The only situation I could see like with them in this is that they keep him to at least start the year and then flip him to a contender at the deadline for like a mad ransom. Like there'll probably be a couple firsts in there, Like if you look at
See, I don't see it because he's not signed. Like, I think if they're gonna do something, they got to do it now. Like, I think
they
like
should.
I think the draft is. I've been watching a lot of Overdrive and a lot of other sports shows lately. There's
Also,
some cautious. Shout out Noodles. There's some cautious optimism that this draft is going to get hectic with trades.
Ooh, can I like chime in here with a little bit?
Yeah.
The rumor is that the Habs have been doing their due diligence on moving up in the draft to either 2, 3, or 4. So I'm not the rumors of what that would take have been like super varying from like, oh, they're gonna have to give up like Caulfield or Suzuki to like it might be Anderson, that pick, other firsts, like later years. Like, so yeah, I at least appreciate that Hughes and Gorton are doing their due diligence and trying to move up. But yeah, if this draft kind of goes the way even last year's draft, that those first 4 picks and the trades that happened were insane. And I would really like to see that again because that was fun.
Yeah, I would like to see some chaos. That's for sure. For sure, I would like to see some chaos. Yeah. So, let's move over to Vancouver. Is there anything else you wanted to add on the Winnipeg front?
On the Winnipeg front, I really don't want to see Hellebuyck go to the Leafs. That would be fucking terrible for everyone but Toronto.
Yeah, I don't see it. It's just where like how the hell do you pay Connor Hellebuyck? Like what you're gonna have to pay for Connor Hellebuyck is not like so you get him for 1 season and then you can't afford to sign him after. I think that's dumb. I think that would be a stupid decision, especially because like I know that he's one of like 2 or 3 guys that you can bank on, but goaltending is so voodoo that I don't want to mortgage the entire future of the franchise just to sign Connor Hellebuyck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Like so let's move.
It's different. It's different when a guy's like Carey Price where he comes through your whole organization. You can kind of bank on him more, whereas trading for him and hoping he settles in and
Yeah, and like there's like 3 guys in the league I would say maybe that you can really really bank on. Let's call them Andrei Vasilevsky. I think people thought it was Igor Shesterkin. He kind of settled down, but we'll still put him in that category. And Connor Hellebuyck. Like those are the 3, right? Okay, Vancouver bought out Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Needed to be done. Jim Betting's the worst GM in like history of sports. I think honestly, like he obviously is not the GM of the Vancouver Canucks anymore, but he's the one who traded Louis Eriksson for Oliver Ekman-Larsson a few years back. Like traded a declining asset for an even more declining. It was just wow.
I think they got the better end of that deal because they got rid of the Eriksson contract. Let's start off there because that Eriksson contract was horrific.
That was awful.
Like that was one of the worst of all time. Picked up one of the other worst of all time in the OEL deal, and they've had some opportunities to move him in the last couple summers or like around the trade deadline, and like it just seems like the Canucks are just hell bent on finishing fucking 9th or 10th in the conference.
I don't know who tweeted that. We will give you credit if we can remember, but like, geez, you are 100%.
Let me pull it up.
Because you are
a fucking banger.
Like, it's true. It's like they're so content with being mediocre. It's unbelievable.
It's not even that they're content with it. That's their goal. Like that's the goal is to be absolutely average.
And it was
Kevin Papetti. We love him.
Yes. Yeah. Just like how mid could we be? That's what we want to do. Like that. Yeah.
Even at the back end of the season, like if they had tanked a little harder, they could have had like a top 10 pick easily. Yep.
No, but their goal is to finish 9th.
They ran all their top guys at like 25 minutes a night and won games that they didn't need to win, and now they pick in the middle of the pack again.
Yep.
It's hilarious. Yep. I love it.
It's great. All right. Is there anything that we are missing?
Actually, let's just do the draft quick. So the draft is on June 28th, round 1, and then the other 6 rounds are on the 29th. So we probably will not have an episode for you guys next week, the 25th, but we will be back on July the 2nd to do the draft and free agency episode. Just we'll get that out there so we don't forget at some point.
Okay. All right, I do want to do one quick thing just because we have some UFAs. We're just gonna do rapid fire here. And I'm gonna ask you, I'm not gonna give an answer, you're gonna give an answer. I'm gonna give you UFAs. I want to know where they're going. Patrick Kane.
Buffalo or New York? Rangers, I should say.
Like I like the Buffalo shout. Jonathan Toews.
I have no clue. My heart says that he will probably end up in Western Canada, because that just kind of makes sense. Nearing the end of his career.
For
But,
whatever
like,
reason, Winnipeg screams at me.
I mean, like, if they move on to Scheifele or Wheeler, like,
Well,
at
he's
least
not going to
having
be asking for much money either.
no, I think that might be like an okay replacement in terms of like the off ice, like the leadership, and like would be great. I don't know if he'll give them any production on the ice, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see him end up in the middle of buttfuck nowhere on a random deal because someone offered him a ton of money. Arizona.
Ryan O'Reilly.
I don't want to say it, but probably Toronto.
Okay, I like to hear that. Vladimir Tarasenko.
What was his last contract?
7.5.
So I don't think he's getting anywhere near that money, but I feel like he's got Boston written all over him.
For whatever reason, Colorado.
Yeah, like he's going to a contender for sure. Like,
yeah. Okay, quick, couple more. Max Pacioretty.
Probably won't sign until the middle of the season until his Achilles is healed, so I have no idea.
Fair enough. John Klingberg.
Trying to think of like a good up and coming team that needs like.
He finished the year in Minnesota, like got traded there from Anaheim at the deadline. I have a feeling he's going to sign in like Chicago or something.
Well, I think if he goes there, it's because they're going to offer him a Seth Jones-esque deal, which obviously you're not going to say no to. But yeah, I like that. I like that shout. Either that or like Edmonton, because they can use a guy like that.
Last one, JVR.
JVR. He has that feel of like cheap deal back in Philadelphia or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting to. It's a couple $1 million playing Philly for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
Kind of filter in and out. Similar to what Phil Kessel did in Vegas this year, except Philly is in Vegas. He might play more.
Yeah, Phil's eating hot dogs out of the Stanley Cup as we speak. So
yeah. All right, so let's get into this theme team.
So this is the all playoff theme team. Not gonna lie, kind of easy one. And this is going to be a little different from what we normally do, where we draft opposing teams. We've actually drafted this team together. It made more sense to do it that way. So where do you want to start? In net?
Yeah. So we're going to start in net. You take the reins here.
Well, let's be real. It's Sergei Bobrovsky.
It's Sergei Bobrovsky every time. Yeah.
Like 8-0, like you could have him in a shout there, but let's be real, it was Bob. That was one of the best
Sergei
playoff
Bobrovsky
performances.
Straight up won 3 series.
Yeah, like one of the best playoff performances you'll ever see from a goalie. Couldn't ask for much more from him. And even like in the Vegas series where they got beat pretty bad, like he never played bad.
He had like one tough game, but you're like, dude.
Yeah. You can have one tough game in a playoff stretch where you fucking knock out the best team in NHL regular season history. You know, one of the top teams in the league for the last 5 years with Toronto Maple Leafs, one of the top teams the last couple years, Carolina Hurricanes. Like, you're allowed to have a bad game in that.
Swept Carolina, by the way.
Yeah, I think so. Bobrovsky clear at the top of the goalies. We're obviously slotting him in there.
Okay, let's move up to D. I'll take this one. We had a little debate between Shea Theodore and Alex Pietrangelo, but we decided we'll go with Alex Pietrangelo.
I was ready to give you Shea Theodore.
Oh, were you? I
was fully ready to give you Shea Theodore.
I like Petro. Let's go with Petro.
All right. So Petro, for the obvious reasons, 10 points, was basically just the heart of that defense. Honestly, probably one of the best defensemen in the league, bar like the Kale McCarr. But yeah, he was just phenomenal. It's his second Stanley Cup. It was a phenomenal playoff for him.
It was.
And partner him, Brandon Montour, was on fire. He cooled off the last, like the Vegas series, but for those first 3 rounds was just on fire. 13 points.
Yeah.
Was just.
I can attest to that. He was so good against Toronto. So good. I was like, where did this fucking guy come from? And Dallas Eakins, who is coaching in Anaheim, was just pumping his tires on the broadcast. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, what is happening?
because like he didn't have the greatest regular season, if my memory serves me correct. Like he was just
No, he
painfully
kind of
average.
it was a weird transition for him without Uyghur after he went to Calgary. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, moving up to the forward positions, we will start on the wing. We agreed, yes, Marchessault on the
Yeah,
one wing.
Marchessault for sure.
Who was the Conn Smythe winner?
Yeah, Conn
right?
Smythe winner, 25 points, 13 goals, and
Heater.
12 assists.
Heater, absolute heater.
Yeah. To be fair, we could there's a bunch of guys we could throw in here. Next guy we went with was Leon Draisaitl, even though he went out in the conference final, 13 goals, he was on pace for one of the greatest playoffs of all time, and he only played 2 rounds, by the way. Sorry, it's not even conference final. He played in the second round and had 13 goals. Just stupid good. And then lastly, from the Florida Panthers, Matthew Tkachuk, 24 points, was just the offensive heartbeat of that team. Scored some huge goals for them. Like he was on one these playoffs.
Yeah, he was up to Matthew Tkachuk things as well, right? He was under people's skin. He was throwing punches. He was jabbing sticks. He was doing all of those things, scoring big
scoring
goals,
game winners. Yeah,
and coming up with some pretty outrageously great sellies too. So you got to shout that out as well. A couple of honorable mention guys for this list. Jack Eichel had a good playoffs. Yep.
But that's his first playoffs, by the way.
Yeah, and he's a Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, dropped 26 points. Yeah, he was on one. Rupe Hintz in Dallas, I thought was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Their best player by a mile, not named Jake Ottinger. Connor McDavid did Connor McDavid things for 2 rounds. He was great.
As previously mentioned, Shea Theodore on the back end as well.
Could have easily been there as well. And Morgan Rielly had a really solid playoffs. Again, only 2 rounds.
I was about to shout him out as well, yeah.
Yeah, he really stepped it up there. I was really impressed by him.
Yeah, Morgan Rielly had a great playoff. There was a lot of problems that a lot of Leaf fans had with him throughout the season. He wasn't at his best for a lot of the season, but boy, did he show us why we paid him that money. 8-year contract kicks in this year for $7.75. Let's go. Let's ride.
I like that thing. I don't think that's a bad deal at all, unless he
sure looked like it for the entirety of the regular season. Everybody was like, "Oh no, the deal hasn't even kicked in yet," and then the playoffs came and it all went away.
Yeah.
All right, that is all we have for you for episode 100. Unless Gitano's not telling me about something.
We just have a couple of thank yous. This is 100 episodes. This is a pretty massive milestone for us. So I got my list here. So I'll start by thanking my sister Aria for just the immediate support. Like the moment we pitched this idea to her, we're like, hey, we might start a podcast. She was like #1 fan, retweets everything, likes everything. So just massive thank you for that. I'd like to thank your girlfriend Michaela for letting me steal you for a couple hours every Sunday morning throughout the hockey season when she would probably rather not. If you guys would rather sleep in or have plans or do things, she lets me steal you. So I do very much appreciate that.
Shout out Michaela.
Yeah. Friends of the show, Trevor Edgar, Andrew Stewart's for giving us their time, actually coming on the show, and giving us their time, their opinions. It's just phenomenal. We're just 2 dudes in our bedrooms talking hockey. That's incredible for us that people are willing to do that. To Michael Flamia for giving, at the time, 2 of his employees Sunday mornings off so we could actually do this. We really appreciated that. I know you no longer work for him, but still very very grateful for that, and trying to get him on the show one day, hopefully.
Yeah, at some point.
Yeah, that'd be a banger of an episode. Matt Stangetta for all the tech support. We physically would not be able to do this show without him. Every tech issue we've had for the past 2.5 years has been directly sent to him. And if he doesn't have an answer for me, he finds an answer for me. So Stang, thank you very much. We literally could not do this without you. To Dave and the rest of the TGM crew, Alex and Dane and all the guys, Scarps, thank you for welcoming us into your family. Like I said, we're 2 dudes talking hockey in our bedroom, and you allowed us to join your network and pushed us to heights that we didn't think we'd ever achieve, and allowed us to grow and do more content on your platform. So thank you very much for that. to just all of our friends who've supported us, to 20man and Willie and Blaine and Mando and all of our friends, anyone who's listened, whether you listened to the episode 1 or if this is your first episode, thank you. We don't do this for the numbers. We don't do this for, for ratings or anything. Like, this is just entirely for fun. But it makes us feel so great when we can look and see people are listening to the episodes and watching the videos and liking our content. It gives us that extra boost to step our game up that much more. And yeah, just thank you for every like, every follow, every subscribe, every second that you watch content of ours. Just thank you so much. And last but not least, thank you, Ave. When you picked this idea very drunkenly at like 2 a.m. while we were playing Call of Duty of, let's start a hockey podcast, like I kind of laughed it off, thought, that'd be fun, but it's just a joke. But it's the best thing that's ever happened to me, like dead ass. There's nobody I would rather spend my Sunday mornings with than you. There's nobody who I would willingly argue so much with than you. And get berated and berate right back. It's exactly the point, and I love it, and I love you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, man. And just so everybody knows, Gitano came up with the list, but I also thank all of those people.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, man. There's nobody in the world that I would do this with. Honestly, never mind. Would rather. There's nobody else that I would do this with other than you. And yeah, this idea kind of came to us because we would sit there at work at Little Caesars, and we would sit there for 4 hours and literally just talk about hockey or sports or whatever it was.
Argue about hockey.
We would, and you know what? We would put $5 bets down on everything, and it was just at one point it got to the point where it was just like, why don't we just record this and put it out there for other people to listen to? Like, why don't we start a podcast? And that's kind of where the idea formed. Yes, on it there was some other stuff that was at 2 a.m. Due to Bud Light, but that's really where the idea came from. And yeah, it's been an honor, man. I can't believe that we've done this for 2 and almost 3 seasons here through a pandemic. Like we really, really grinded it out. We've grinded out some episodes. We've done them when we haven't wanted to do them. We've had episodes that we've been overjoyed to do. There have been some dark ones. There have been some ones where we haven't said much. There have been some where we've said a ton, right? Like we've gone through such a journey here, and it's been such a blessing to do so. So thank you too, Gitano.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too, man. Thank you for listening to episode 100. Thank you to the Game Entertainment and Media for hosting us on your platforms. Check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. All the links are below. Check out the jerseys, by the way. Gitano ordered these bad boys in for episode 100. Thank you again.
Shout out Hasbro jerseys. Well, I love that guy.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you again. We will talk to you not next Sunday, but the Sunday following. We're going to do a little episode for the draft. And you'll also get to hear from Gitano and I both tonight on Top Shelf. So tune into that.